clap your hands, everybody, if you got what it takes. Well, I'm Trey XL, and I want y'all to know you can't forget the breaks.
The Atlantic Coast Conference presents a Raycom Sports production. Growing up as a kid in Brooklyn, you could find a barbershop on nearly every block. It was a staple in the community, where the old heads shared their knowledge while the younger cats looked to tighten up their fades for a Saturday night. And while the conversations varied from music to politics, it was always sports that brought all generations together.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, what's up, man?
None.
You got a lot of other teams that don't have a superstar like Melo, and they gel.
Oh, y'all talking hoops early?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Today, the landscapes may have changed, but the topics remain the same. Basketball is still king in New York.
Y'all talking New York City legends now. Y'all talking my dude now, baby. Mr. Tibbs. Now we got two of them coming in the building. Y'all know Mr. Charles, a.k.a. Charlie Scott,
Got
of
my
course.
man here.
Big time legend. Coach Bobby Crimmins, who was a stud on the court. Then we got my man Jules of Harlem coming in.
All right, Harlem World.
ACC legend, but was a legend in Harlem well before he came down south. His coat in Harlem? He came in with the Harlem coat on?
Levels Barbershop in Harlem provides the backdrop for a history lesson on New York basketball from a few of the ACC's greatest. This is A Cut Above, the legacy of New York City basketball and the ACC.
Coach from the Bronx. We got two Harlem cats in here. We got Queens finest right here. So my question to all y'all is, who is representing Brooklyn?
Stephon Marbury.
Starbury.
Bob Williams said, old school.
John Sally.
John Sally. Coach, you came up and got you a couple out of Brooklyn.
Man,
you got a couple out of Brooklyn.
Pearl Washington, hands down.
Pearl,
That was a good one.
Yes.
Pearl was.
Well, I'm glad to see that you guys know a little basketball. But if you want to talk about Brooklyn, you got to start with Roger Brown and Connie Hawkins.
The Hawk, right.
See, those were the players that, the Hawk, and Roger Brown. To be honest with you, those were the guys that started the legacy of Boys High, back at that time.
I had a chance to talk with all the guys before y'all got here about what New York City basketball is all about. So I'm getting it from the perspective of guys who watched it. Now I need it from the perspective of guys that were New York City basketball. So when you talk New York City basketball, what does that make up for you?
Well, see, New York City basketball is basketball IQ. See,
Okay.
first of all, to play, because see, when we played New York City basketball, the thing about it was that we didn't practice Mondays to Fridays. We just went out and played on Saturdays and Sundays. But you had to have enough idea about the guy you were playing with to know what was his best move. What did he do? We didn't practice with each other, but we knew enough about each other's game. So you had to understand the game of basketball in order to play it. I think, New York City basketball, and as you know, we're talking to everybody here, everyone has an opinion.
Absolutely. We're in the
New York
barbershop.
City
Everybody got to have an
basketball
opinion in the
is
barbershop.
Everybody got an opinion.
Coach, you tell me, who was the best that you saw, played against, whatever it may be, coming up in New York?
Well, I went to All Hallows High School, and we played in the Catholic School League, and we played against a school called Power Memorial. And they had a guy named Lou Alcindor. I'll never forget when I walked in the gym, the size of him, it was incredible. And then we started playing, and it was like men against boys. I'd never been so intimidated. I didn't know what to do. And he was incredible. Just kept on tapping the ball around until it went in.
All right, so of course, all you guys played in the ACC. South Carolina was in the ACC when you were in school. And of course, you coached in the ACC. All you guys were part of the league. So coming from New York, and you were in Laurinburg, for 3 years of high school before you left the city in high school. But what was it about New York that you brought south?
the thing I brought, and really that, I think that made it possible for me to be successful was that I brought that New York bit of survival, knowing how to survive in any situation. See, that's what New York teaches you more than anything else, like how to survive. I used to tell people, I grew up in New York where every day that I got up was a day of how I'm going to survive this day. So when you live like that and you play basketball, that's when everybody said, because I was the first black at North Carolina, everybody said, well, isn't it tough being the first black here? Isn't it tough playing there? I said, no, toughness is growing up in Harlem.
Gotcha.
That's toughness.
Gotcha.
If this is what y'all were worried about me having a problem with, then life is good.
Well, I know another thing you brought down south was this guy. Yeah. And so when you brought him down south, that was good for everybody and good for the league. Now, what did you bring with you?
The flair, South, I think, being in the playgrounds, guys before me, Pearl Washington, he had that swag. I wanted that swag from him. Kenny Patterson, I used to see him in Queens and Rochdale Village play. He did this move between the legs. He would do it like it was crazy. He put it between the legs like 3-4 times so quick behind the back. It was something I always remembered. I wanted to get to do that move. And the toughness, playing in the ACC. And at my time, it was point guard heaven. Bob Hurley, Chris Corciani, John Crotty, myself. So it was, top, point guards in the conference. So you had to compete every night.
Yeah. And you almost stayed home in New York. Almost went to Syracuse and decided to switch it up and come to Raleigh, go to NC State. All right. So now when you made that decision, what was it you thought that you could bring down south that you wouldn't be able to do it at Syracuse?
This had to bring that grit and toughness to them country boys, man. They wasn't used to that, what I'm saying? Growing up in the city, I seen guys go to ACC and play well like Gary Saunders, Stephon Marbury. Coach, why you didn't recruit me? I would have went.
I thought I did.
Me playing in that era, seeing all of that stuff, it gave me that flair. It gave me that toughness. So whenever I was out there on the court, I'm like, man, y'all know y'all can't mess with me. I'm about to do whatever I want. I'm going to have my way. Then afterwards, we could go hang out or something.
The conversation is just heating up. And when we return, we'll head back to Harlem as two street ball legends reunite at what many call the Mecca of modern basketball. In my neighborhood in Brooklyn, every boy had aspirations to be a baller at the Rucker. Those players were the local rock stars that a kid like me could actually see and touch. They commanded respect the minute they walked on the court, and they gave hope to those who had little else. Over 40 years later, two icons, Charles Scott and Joe Hammond, reunited at the place where their names will never be forgotten.
So in the summertime, you came here, if you were a basketball player of any significant value that you thought you would prove yourself here. This was the NBA to most Harlemites.
That's right.
Saturday and Sunday, this was our NBA.
Believe that.
And this was our opportunity to really display our skills in front of other people. The fence would be full with people. Full with people all the way up here. People be on top of that building there.
Up on the highway.
Up on the highway.
Up on the project roof with binoculars. You ever seen any basketball tournament like that?
Joe Hammond is a legend out here. So is Bobby Hunter. Julius Erving is up and coming. Charlie Scott's out here. You've got guys who are playing, guys who could have played, guys who probably will get the chance to play through this tournament.
And I'm glad to say that I remember seeing guys, Tiny Archibald played here.
Yeah.
Dave Cowens played here. Pee Wee Kirkland played here. You played here. I played here. Julius Erving, Joe Dupree, Manny Leaf, Walt Frazier. We just had the opportunity to really learn basketball on this court because if you couldn't play in Rucker,
You wasn't known as a ball player.
you wasn't known as a ball player. And then if you
Right.
want to be known as a ball player,
You better be in Rucker.
you had to play at Rucker.
Now, the Rucker was known for producing legends, but few had the legacy of Joe the Destroyer Hammond, a player who never played one single high school or college game, but he ruled the Harlem Summer Leagues.
Joe Hammond was one of the very few guys that I played against that I said, if I took his skill level and took the skills that he had, those skills were the skills that pro athletes have. His skills were the skills that pro basketball players have.
Joe was drafted right off the playground in the 1971 NBA hardship draft by the Lakers, but declined to sign because he was thriving on the streets as a drug dealer. Charles took a much different path and left the streets of Harlem for Tobacco Road.
Charlie took it and went all the way with it. You know what I'm saying? And that was the difference between Charlie Scott and Joe Hammond. You know what I'm saying? And he became our hero, and he was a great ball player without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? We all know that.
Charles was recruited by the legendary Dean Smith and became the first scholarship African-American to attend the University of North Carolina. The All-American excelled on the court using that same toughness from playing at the Rucker to survive the racially charged South.
I tell you, man, he was our hero. He was our hero, and we knew the history of the racism that they had down there. Like I said, and Charlie went right there in North Carolina. Oh, man, you know how Harlem was? Man, he killing them. He playing too, man. You know what I'm saying?
Going to North Carolina was just in addition to what I was used to in life. The competition, the competitiveness, but also the survival was the instincts that made it possible for me to really go down there and play.
After North Carolina, Charles headed to the ABA, but no matter how successful he was, he would always have to prove himself at the Rucker.
Everybody knew that I had come from North Carolina. I had played at the University of North Carolina. I played in the ABA for a year, and I was Rookie of the Year and made the All-Star team and had played, and was pretty successful at that time. So Joe, of course, was the icon of the Rucker, and Pee Wee was one of his proteges, and Pee Wee called me out, and I decided to take the challenge. And at that time, I had my girlfriend with me. So can't show me up in front of my girlfriend.
Showed you up, right? That's why you were so erratic. You said, come out here.
Yeah, that's what it was about. Cause he,
you crazy.
He had called me, or he called me and said, well, yeah, man, but come on and play.
It was a simple challenge from playground hero Pee Wee Kirkland that sparked one of the greatest street ball games ever.
One thing about Charlie, he was competitive with anybody and everybody. It didn't make a difference who he played against.
Charles and Dr. J put on a show for the crowd, including this crazy alley-oop that became Rucker legend.
But knowing me, I was probably shooting a damn ball and didn't make it in junior corner and dunked it. Everybody thought it was an alley-oop. And Junior caught it and dunked it. So they like, ooh, that's a hell of a pass. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a pass. It was a great game. All of us scored a lot of points because it was a triple overtime game. I had about 40, Joe had about 40, Julius had about 30, Pee Wee had about 30. We had that. And at the end of the game, I'll never forget, we're on the side, the game is over, and one of the guys from Milbank, I'm not gonna say his name, friend of Joe and him, and Joe know who I'm talking about, he looked at me and said, good game. Don't come down past 116th Street anymore or you'll be dead. So people took the game seriously. They took the game real seriously. And the funny thing about it was that I really never came past 116th Street after he told me that anyway, because they were serious about that.
Well, you said you didn't venture past 116 anyway.
I haven't gone past 116th Street since then. I ain't got to pay it, do I?
Still got some of that Italy.
Hey, I was thinking that New York came in one time. You know that? You never let that go. I ain't got to pay you, right?
All right, so and just a little backdrop, of course, and you know this very well. So Dean Smith recruited you to North Carolina. Dean Smith was an assistant coach to Frank McGuire when he was at North Carolina, who moved on to South Carolina. Frank McGuire actually recruited you and brought you from New York City to South Carolina. So now you've got a system called the subway system of where coaches in the South, Frank McGuire, Dean Smith, are now recruiting players from New York, where they have ties, of course, and bringing them to the South. And you guys were both a major part of that, all right? So you talk about Coach McGuire. What was it about New York that he wanted to come and make sure he got players from because you were one of those guys?
Well, Corey, you got to remember, Frank McGuire grew up in New York. He grew up in the Village. He went to Xavier High School. He played basketball at St. John's. And then he went to coach high school. Then he went back to St. John's and coach. He coached Al McGuire and Dick McGuire at St. John's. And then he went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And of course, everybody knows in 1957, he won the national championship with 5 New York area guys.
Basketball was not very big at the University of North Carolina when we came down.
Frank McGuire was a movie star. I just idolized him. I mean, he was good looking, knew what he was doing, and he had championship caliber basketball teams.
McGuire felt that he could recruit from New York. So this is where he got the ball players from.
Frank McGuire's roots ran deeper in New York than anyone else. When he was at North Carolina with his national championship team, 5 New Yorkers. Bobby Cunningham from All Hallows, Joe Quigg from St. Francis Prep, Pete Brennan from St. Augustine, Tommy Kearns from St. Anne's Academy, and Lenny Rosenbluth from James Monroe in the Bronx. He was really the star of the team. But it was the New York connection and these people who felt a great sense of loyalty to Frank McGuire would help him.
We were playing New York style basketball, and we had aggressive kids. How do you get aggressive? You play in the park, either you're aggressive or you're not playing basketball. So I think that mentality really helps you.
Well, because we played for Frank McGuire, we didn't have individual styles. We had a Frank McGuire style.
We scored almost 80 points a game our senior year. And this is about the 3-point shot. So we could run, we could slow it down, and coach didn't tell us basically what to do. We did it ourselves. I said, don't worry about it, coach. We're going to win them all. I just refused to let them down, and all the guys felt the same way.
All right, it's taken out by Parker. Parker throws a long one into the left side. They feed it into Stilt, and it's tapped away from Stilt. That we win! 54-53, North Carolina did it!
They win the national championship, beating Wilt in double overtime in Kansas City.
1 point changed our lives. We are the ones that started basketball being very popular in the state of North Carolina. And this is 60 years later, and they still talk about our 1957 undefeated season.
The Atlantic Coast Conference presents a Raycom Sports production.
Coach, we talked to you about the Bronx, growing up in the Bronx, and we've heard about the different boroughs, this, that, and other. What was your upbringing like in the Bronx?
It was incredible. It was all the immigrants, Corey. We were a mixture of European immigrants, and it was survival. And I was just very fortunate that right across the street was the schoolyard. But I got, growing up in that environment, I could get along with, anybody. It made no difference. And my parents, you know, again, being immigrants, coming to America, and they wanted their kids to live the American dream. And because of my parents and because of the game of basketball, I've been able to do just that. It almost looks exactly the same. And I'm so happy that the South Bronx still exists. Right here was my basketball court. And I'd come right down the steps, right into this gate here, and start playing basketball. I had the luxury whenever I walk out of this courtyard, right across the street was a schoolyard. And I would spend almost every free moment I had in that schoolyard playing basketball, playing stickball, playing all kinds of different New York games. It was a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time, just me, a basketball, and a goal. I think most great players, they do that. And then you have to have the environment. And I was very fortunate to have the perfect environment to do that.
Bobby's biggest influence came from his Irish immigrant parents, who taught him the meaning of hard work.
I'm very proud of Bobby. Very proud of him.
My parents are great. A lot of Irish traditions, although they did not talk about Ireland a whole lot. They wanted us to, you know, live in America. Their goal was to give their children a chance to live the American dream.
Bobby's commitment and love for the game would pay off. He became an academic and basketball standout at All Hallows High School under coach Jack Lyons.
You couldn't turn him away. He wanted it bad, and of course I would put him in everything. A foul shooting contest, boom, he's in.
Bobby was a part of Frank McGuire's New York subway system, and he followed his coach and mentor down to South Carolina.
My starting five with Bobby Crimmins is the most energetic and the most spirited boy I've ever seen play basketball. He's an ideal captain.
Playing for Frank McGuire and playing in the ACC at South Carolina, I felt I had a chance. I wanted to play professionally. That was, ever since I started here, that was my #1 goal. But I really feel that my destiny was coaching. And when my playing door closed, thank God, the coaching door opened up. And again, Frank McGuire had a lot to do with that, and the rest is history.
And Georgia Tech has knocked off North Carolina. I love you, man. The Yellow Jackets do it. Georgia Tech, an ACC champion.
The Yellow Jackets have won the 1993 ACC Basketball Tournament Championship.
That's Mr. Crimmins, we won!
A visit back to his neighborhood brings back memories of an American dream. Bobby's passion and determination for basketball will be the foundation that shaped his entire life.
I'm very grateful that, you know, I grew up across the street, and you know, this schoolyard, the basketball, the game of basketball changed my life. This is where my passion for the game of basketball started, right here. And I'm very grateful for that. So this whole thing started with a New Yorker born here, Frank McGuire. And of course, as you mentioned, he hired, you know, Dean Smith. So when I became a head coach, I did what Frank McGuire did, Corey. You know, I came right back to my roots, and I recruited New York guys.
So we talked with Coach Crimmins about, you know, the 1960s and 1970s and, you know, basketball in New York. We fast forward 10, 15, 20 years. Chibs, you're the guy. Nobody had more style than you. Now, you followed a guy who maybe wasn't that flashy in Kenny Smith.
Yeah.
Who was, you know, Malloy and was ahead of you. And, you know, like I said, and of course, everybody thought you would end up going to North Carolina because of that. Where did your flash come from?
I guess let's just looking at like Pearl, Boo Harvey, because they had handles and they had all, you know, Pearl with the inside change. Boo Harvey just had tricks. Kenny Patterson. It was those type of players, you know, that I watched growing up. Kenny, his brother's my mentor, Vincent Smith. He, different type of athletes. He was the jet. He was quick and could jump. I couldn't jump. I wasn't no explosive player, so I had to use deception in my dribble. For me, it was my vision, my deception, and basketball about angles. And I'm left-handed, so that's just how I was able to do the things I was doing on the court. I'm from Left Rack City. It's Left Rack City. This is in Queens. We're in Queens now. All the ballers is from Queens. We got myself, Kenny Smith, Mark Jackson. But I ain't playing this court in a minute. Kenny Anderson, Left Rack City. Yeah, get that pass going. Oh.
We here on your court, Kenny Anderson court, Left Rack City. It started here. It wasn't going in the gym, this, that, and other. It started out here, coming out, all the people just around, just watching, and this is where the legend was made.
What's good about Left Rack, it's convenient. I walk out my apartment, walk right here to the court, and then everybody had terraces. So, they could look out on their terrace and, we be like, oh, Chibs is playing today, they can come and be crowded. It was just like some good games. All the finger rolls, the hook shots off the backboard. These basketball courts in the summer stayed crowded. You had to win to stay on. Quick. I was like 160, about 165, soaking wet, getting pushed around. One thing I could do is handle the ball. So if you can handle the ball, they couldn't take it from you. So they get mad and grab me, grab the ball and throw it off. And then my sister used to come down and be like, yo, y'all gonna let my brother play. Leave my brother alone. So enough of that, they just said, okay, he could play. And then I started, really, playing well.
When you left here, where did you like to hoop and go take your game other places so other people could see what you do?
Everywhere. I used to play at all the city tournaments where you can compete against the best in the city. And that's what I had to do. I had to get out of this barrel. Get out of Left Rack and say, I want to play against the best and see where I, add up, against the best. I used to be like, John Stockton is in front of me. I used to go hard. You know what I'm saying? Gary Payton right there. There's a loose ball when I'm going. He's going after it. I got to go for it. Just to get yourself riled up to really work at your craft. You got to work hard.
You got to tell me about Chibs.
Oh, wow, that's a good story. My mother named me that when I was like 5 days old. She had me in her arms, trying to, give it a name, a nickname, and her mouth was full. And she said Cheeks, and it came out Chibs. And ever since then, I was Chibs. It's funny because when I went to register for school, me and my mother, when I was kindergarten, when she said my name was Kenny, I was like, who's Kenny? I thought I was Chibs. So, it's a true story, man, and it just grew on me.
The neighborhood kid known as Chibs would make a name for himself on the street. But it was his play at Archbishop Malloy High School that turned him into a New York City legend.
A lot of memories here, man. This is where it all started.
Kenny became the first freshman ever to play varsity under another New York City basketball icon, head coach Jack Curran.
He wasn't sure what team to try out for. I said, well, let him come in with the varsity. We'll take a look at him first. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, I said, he's definitely going to be on the varsity. The passes he made were terrific. It was probably the most exciting point guard ever to play in this league.
Despite not starting as a freshman, Kenny set the city's all-time scoring record with over 2,600 points, quickly becoming the most publicized and decorated player of his generation.
Kenny Anderson, it's showtime now for Archbishop Malloy. He goes between the legs, left-handed, right-handed. Either way it goes, Kenny Anderson is an all-around complete player.
When did you know you're good?
85 when we won the city championship. After that game, it was, I got my swagger, I got my confidence. I got all, after that game, all the, colleges recruiting me and all that. It was just crazy from there.
Kenny would become the most recruited player ever, eventually signing with Bronx native Bobby Cremins to play at Georgia Tech.
Now or never. I just wanted to blend in and do the right thing, but I wanted to win.
Walks through the door, He's about $110 soaking wet. I'm like, this skinny little kid is gonna help us get to the Final Four? I don't see it. First day of practice, the ball busts me in the back of the head. Yo, D, I see you, yo. And then I was introduced to the phenom of Kenny Anderson and what he was and what he was about. It was all because this young kid from New York that came in and made life easy for everybody.
The combination of Kenny, Dennis Scott, and Brian Oliver were unstoppable. In 1990, they won the ACC championship and made a trip to the Final Four, earning the nickname Lethal Weapon 3.
It clicked, and I think that the more we were able to have success early in the season, eventually that whole thing of us being lethal, all of us averaging over 20 points a game, was something that, caught on nationwide.
We all mixed well. The Lethal Weapon 3, we mixed well. It was a good gel, and I was just orchestrating everything.
Kenny's name is synonymous with New York City basketball. His name continues to ring out in the hearts of so many New Yorkers because of his incredible story. While his legend grows in the city, the kid, affectionately known as Chibs, attributes all of his success to his family and friends who molded him along the way.
This is where it all started for me, and the comeback it's a big thing, you know what I mean? And like I said, it's something I always will remember. So many guys that along the way helped me, mold me as a player and also in how to be a young man. Experience is the best teacher. Like, I've been through ups and downs. I've been top player. I've been the role player. I've been on the end of the bench. Grew up in a one-parent home, and so there's nothing you can tell me, and I still made it. What you put in is what you get out of it, and that's the same with life.
The Atlantic Coast Conference presents a Raycom Sports production.
Who was the guy when you were coming up, even when you were watching or you played against? Who was the guy in New York?
My history is all the point guards before me, because when I was in it, really wasn't no top point guard. I was the guy. So I go with Pearl, Kenny Smith, Rod Strickland, Mark Jackson. Those are guys I wanted to be like. I wanted to be like, so I try to take a little bit from their game and put it in my game. That's New York guard era.
So now you fast forward another 15 years, you're coming out of high school, all right? Now you're the guy around here, but who were the other guys? Who were the guys you were looking up to, and what did New York basketball mean to you?
New York City basketball is like the epitome of high school basketball around the nation. Always had the best players, toughest players. Harlem, the flashiest guys. Brooklyn, the toughest. So in terms of guys that were my age, who I was like a year over me, and I was like, man, these guys are really good, is Andre Barrett, Rice High School, Omar Cook, Christ the King, Tyleek Brown, St. John's Prep. Those guys was just like super good. So I'll be out there in the snow, 30-minute intervals working out with my brother, like, man, we're gonna whoop on Rice this year, blah, blah. He like, man, Andre Barrett, top 5 in the nation. You can't touch him. Training my mind to really want to destroy and hate these guys when I get on the court. So pretty much going out there and trying to win, and no matter what it took to get a W. We're in Bill Robb Park right here, growing up. I live right here in this building, so when the lights would go out, my mom would be like, all right, Julius, it's time to get upstairs, but it could be snowing, freezing outside, and me and my brother Steve, we'll work out in intervals, 30 minutes at a time, because your hands would get so frostbitten. Just out here getting the toughness, knocking down a couple J's, feeling great for the night. And then my brother bringing me back to earth, telling me I'm not #1 in the country, so I gotta work harder. So, but this is where it all started right here as a shorty. Got your ball stuck up there? You're gonna get your rock stuck, you gotta be able to get it, man. You can't jump up there and get it? Got no bounce? I just love it to see this young generation coming outside and working on their game in a park and not needing a gym. You know what I'm saying? This is where you get that toughness and that grit. You know, this is what I used to do right here. You know, feels very much so reminiscent because my fingers actually frostbit again. But you know, just being out here and seeing guys, and you know, this is how you can facilitate a way to, you know, to help your family and out of the inner city.
Give it up!
Yeah, just, you know, coming out here, you know, shooting with my brother, learning the game, just, you know, definitely helped me along the way.
He wanted to be great from an early age. At the age of 4, he mentioned that he wanted to be an NBA player. And at that age, it's so far-fetched. But once he made that statement, you know, day in and day out, he put in the work. He wasn't going to allow any obstacles to set him back or prevent him from achieving his dreams.
So when I stepped into the ACC as a youngster, I felt like I could play against anybody because, you know, I've been out here playing against grown men since I was a youngin', and still to this day, I feel like, you know, I'm on the court. Can't nobody mess with me. You know, Bill Robb right here, man. You know, this is my neighborhood, this is where I grew up. Helped mold me and make me who I am today. You know, I love this place.
A trip home wouldn't be complete without a visit to St. Raymond High School, where Julius won 2 city championships and was named Mr. Basketball in 2001.
Today is actually Alumni Day, so it's a good time to be back, and I'm going to enjoy it. It's memories. This is where it all started right here. From Harlem, New York, to here, St. Raymond's High School in the Bronx. It's a game going on. Let's check it out. I can remember getting out of class, 2 o'clock, rushing to the gym so I could get a workout in before our practice or our game, and just the crowd during the game was just magnificent. The gym looks the same, it smells the same, the same sounds, getting ready for game time, and you know, it brings back great memories. Uh-oh, he had that and he had all that. Get that, there you go. Oh, got him, dunk it. You know, this is where I started. I've been coming to this gym since I was about 9 to 10 years old. So to be back right now and to be able to watch a couple games and just continue to see my alma mater flourish, it's a great feeling.
You're one of those guys. You're now a coach, all right? So how has this city and you being a player in it and everything else, how has that influenced you moving forward as you not only coach, but come back and try to recruit these guys to bring them to your program?
I think to start off, it helps me that I played in a city. So I know a lot of the people, I know the coaches, I know a lot of the parents. I either played with them or they were looking out after me when I was young and growing up. That's the first thing. I think also, it's just you have to be genuine with these kids. I mean, if you come in and you're fast talking and you're a greaseball, these kids will see right through you. Like New York City kids, they're very smart. So you just have to be real with them. And my angle is, I know a lot of coaches will say, yeah, we talking NBA. I'm thinking you could get a top level education and degree first off, and second off, after you're done with your 4 years, you're gonna love me. But while you're there, you're gonna hate me because I'm gonna work your tail every single day and I'm gonna get you better, not only as a player, but as a person.
When we return, we add a new highlight to our basketball heritage at the Mecca for Hoops. College basketball's most tradition-rich conference, the ACC, brings its game north to Brooklyn for the first time.
This is it, what the ACC tournament is all about.
The Atlantic Coast Conference presents a Raycom Sports production.
Wake Forest wins the ACC championship. Oh my!
The Yellow Jackets have won.
It's all over. The most exciting basketball contest ever played in the ACC.
When you guys played in the ACC, it was the best league in the country.
Yep.
When I played in the ACC, when you played in the ACC, it was the best league in the country. When you played in the ACC, it was the best league in the country. 15 teams now, and the ACC is the best league in the country. So when you go back and look at it, as New Yorkers, now I'm sure this wasn't anything that you ever imagined when you were even playing in the ACC, right?
No, that's what I thought when they said it's coming to Boston. I'm saying, man, imagine, you know, my team, Georgia Tech, at 89-90 with Lethal Weapon 3 playing here in Brooklyn.
Oh.
It would be crazy. I grew up right down the way from Broadcliff, about 25 minutes. So it's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, for you, a New Yorker.
Yeah, definitely. You know, me being from Harlem and now being able to see a NC State versus Duke in the ACC tournament championship, hopefully. I mean, that would be awesome. You know, my mom, my brother come down to the game. I think it's definitely good, the expansion of coming to the city. It's going to be a big positive for the ACC.
And you've coached and won an ACC tournament. You've won an ACC tournament as a player. Now when you think about the fact that this, you know, great event is coming to your home city, you know, and how much you had to do with the league and being a pioneer in this league the way it is, do you take pleasure in being able to see that the ACC tournament comes to New York?
Well, I take pleasure because, you know, Bobby and then, I mean, Coach McGuire was the first, you know, group of New Yorkers to go down there. But I was really the first guy from Harlem to go down to the ACC to play in the tournament. And I love to see the ACC come to New York. And I hope somebody from New York break the ACC championship scoring record, which I hold.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. You hold that.
But it's got to be a New Yorker, though. You
Got to be a New Yorker, yeah.
I understand
and to
that.
break it in New York, because to me, that would be full cycle of what I was about.
Is that your favorite ACC tournament moment?
Well, yeah, it was Duke. I mean, I played Duke in the finals. I scored 40 points in the championship game against Duke. We were down 11 at halftime. And at that time, see, if you didn't win the tournament, you didn't go to the NCAA tournament. Now, it didn't make any difference that we won the regular season, you know, conference championship. If you didn't win the tournament, you didn't go to the NCAA tournament.
What was your favorite ACC tournament moment?
Oh, man, my favorite moment had to be my freshman year versus Maryland. They had beat us twice in the regular season. We're playing them in the semifinals, and we need this win in order to make it to the tournament. It's about 50 seconds left. Tie game, shot clock running down. I catch the ball at about 3 seconds, shoot a three. Swish. We beat that Maryland team that had Juan Dixon, Steve Blake, Lonnie Baxter, Chris Wilcox.
They ended up being a national championship team.
Exactly. We was the last team to beat them.
Now, I'm put you on the spot because you're torn. What is your favorite ACC tournament moment?
As a player or a coach?
Oh, well, you tell me.
Unfortunately, unlike Charlie, I lost in a ACC championship game as a player.
Yeah.
And one of the main, when I became a coach, one of my main goals was get to redemption and try and win an ACC championship as a coach that I lost as a player. In 1985 with a Brooklyn guy by the name of John Sally and Mark Price. We beat North Carolina in Atlanta for the ACC championship. And then 90 with this guy. He was a freshman and he took us to the Final Four.
All of you guys, of course, New York is home. And not just New York City is home. The ACC is also home for you. You know, each and every one of you guys is a legend, not just in your own minds, but in all the ACC fans as well. How does it feel for you guys to have that here, have the culmination of the ACC tournament being here, but also the influence that you've had, in the league?
I think the greatest thing about the ACC tournament moving to New York City is that you can't mention ACC basketball without mentioning New York City players, without mentioning a Kenny Anderson, without mentioning a Charlie Scott, without mentioning Coach Crimmins. So just for it now to come full circle and be back in the Mecca, I think it's an awesome thing.
Well, I mean, I'm glad because I never had the opportunity to have my parents or my friends even watch me play in an ACC tournament. And to see really the very first conference that had a conference championship tournament come here, I think, it put two things together, because the first ACC team to win a championship was with New Yorkers. So isn't it fitting that the ACC is now coming back to New York to repay them for putting them on the pedestal that they've been on for so long?
You can find a barbershop on nearly every block in New York City. And while the topics remain the same, this conversation was unlike any other. It's rare to have four basketball icons come home to talk about the game they love.
Well, guys, first of all, I appreciate all you guys being here. Kamal, thank you for, bringing us in. E, appreciate you on the cut, my man. I want to thank you, Charles Scott, of course, as always, for being a part of this and bringing liveliness as you always do to everything. Julius Hodge, 2005 ACC Player of the Year, 2004 ACC Player of the Year. Bobby Crimmins, of course, multi-ACC Coaches of the Year and big-time star at South Carolina back before expansion even started. And, of course, my favorite ACC player of all time, Mr. Tibbs, Kenny Anderson.
And for me, I'll always cherish my time balling on courts all across the city. Same courts that produce so many legends.
And of course, New York basketball. Like you said, you can't mention ACC without New York basketball, and looking forward to it returning to the Mecca.
And thanks to one man, there's a deeply rooted connection up and down the Atlantic coast that can bear witness to the greatest of the five boroughs. Over 6 decades of New York City basketball and the ACC. Welcome home.